My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not unusual to have fun with anyone. But when I see you hanging about with anyone, it's not unusual to see me cry. I wanna die. It's not unusual to go out at any time.
Oh, it's not unusual. The great Tom Jones. This is a birthday bumper music selection from Steve Dobies, who is celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, Steve Dobies. All right. There are so many great films that depict legal drama and legal comedy, for that matter. You could go down the list, right? A Few Good Men. I mentioned the film that my wife and I are watching now, Runaway Jury, all the way back to Kill a Mockingbird, countless others. The Verdict, you name it. I mean, there's just so many. And finally, we have a law professor taking their legal acumen to the cinema. And Dr. Stanley Fish, who's a distinguished professor of law and has, been very well regarded in the legal profession. He's at Florida International University. He has written the book, Law at the Movies, Turning Legal Doctrine into Art. Dr. Fish, thanks so much for getting up early for us. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you, and thanks for playing the Tom Jones clip. He was a great man.
Yeah, I had a feeling that you were. I had a feeling that you were a fan. Do you have a favorite Tom Jones song for the next time you come on?
Actually, he once did something late night with Janis Joplin, "Little Girl Blue." It was amazing duo, and I've never been able to see it again.
Oh. That is interesting. I've not heard that. I will have to look it up. I'm not sure if he's still performing, but he certainly was a once in a generation, once in a lifetime artist. All right. Speaking of art and artistry, what first sparked your interest in how legal doctrine is portrayed in cinema? Was there a particular film or a particular case that made you realize how powerful this intersection could be?
Well, actually, much more mundane. I was looking for a course that I could teach that would attract students. And the idea came to me easily. Students like to watch movies, and law students would like to watch movies about law. So I put that together and began giving the course. And in the course of giving the course, I became absolutely compelled by the subject and knew I had to write about it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way that you told that story. My only issue with the framing of that sentence is that you didn't say the words, "of course," in the course of giving a course. So had you done that, that would have been well, 5 stars, sir. All right.
Thank you. I'll go to school with you.
You go. There you go. Of course. In your view, what distinguishes a great law film from just an entertaining one? Are there more common storytelling techniques that make certain legal narratives resonate more deeply with viewers?
Yeah, the ones that interest me are films that, rather than having law as a background or even as a setting, take legal doctrine seriously, even the parts of legal doctrine that might seem dry when they're rehearsed, and make drama out of them. And so that's a particular skill that some filmmakers had. So that in a classic movie like 12 Angry Men, the question of exactly what is a jury, how do juries work, how are determinations of guilt and innocence arrived at, is made the basis of the drama. And all of the both plot and character turns on legal questions about juries and evidence.
I realize maybe it's an unfair question because I hate questions like this, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you anyway. Do you have a favorite legal film, either in terms of just the quality of the film itself or how well it depicts the law?
I think for how well it depicts the law, Anatomy of a Murder, Otto Preminger movie with Jimmy Stewart and Lee Remick, because that movie is about lawyerly craft, how it is that lawyers who are interested simply in exercising their craft rather than in the pursuit of some large abstraction like justice. There's no talk of justice in that movie. There's just an exploration of the techniques that allow a lawyer to put a case before a jury, even though the question of the innocence or guilt of his client is never really resolved and is really never even interesting in the movie.
You highlight films like A Few Good Men and The Firm as prime examples of law driving the narrative. Are there films that get the legal details right but fail to captivate dramatically, or vice versa?
Well, there's a genre of people who write books pointing out why some scene in a law movie is wrongly executed because the detail of the law has been gotten wrong. But I myself don't have very much interest in that kind of gotcha criticism. So even when the dramatization is based on an account of law that a law professor might question, I think you can make a case for compelling drama and not worry that much about whether the scriptwriter would pass the bar review.
At 31 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. We're talking with Dr. Stanley Fish, a law professor and someone that has explored the intersection of film and the law, with Law at the Movies turning legal doctrine into art. Some legal films, Dr. Fish, simplify complex legal doctrines for the sake of pacing, for the sake of storytelling. I guess that's only natural. Are there examples where filmmakers have balanced accuracy with dramatic impact particularly well? You mentioned the Otto Preminger film. Are there others?
Yeah, I would mention Absence of Malice, which is a Sidney Pollack film starring Paul Newman. And in that movie, the implications of a 1964 case, New York Times versus Sullivan, are explored and made into the plot. New York Times versus Sullivan rewrote the libel laws in the United States and made it much more difficult for a well-known person to demonstrate that he or she had been libeled, because the new test was that the libeler, the person who did it, had to have proceeded in knowledge that he was or she was producing a falsehood and therefore was in reckless regard of the truth. Now, as I've just rehearsed that little bit, it sounds extremely dull and technical. But in the movie, it's wonderfully brought to life because Paul Newman, as a person who happens to be known, is accused of implicitly by a newspaper article of things that he never did. But the newspaper is protected by New York Times versus Sullivan because the person is someone whose name the public comes to know. Actually, the public comes to know the name because of the story that the newspaper has written. And it's also an interesting movie because most movies about the press are pro-press, or absence of malice asks the question, well, what if the First Amendment gives too much leeway to the press? And if New York Times versus Sullivan gives too much protection to the libeler, what kind of world do we live in then? And this is an absolutely marvelous movie. It also stars Sally Field in a great performance.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've seen this. I got to put it on my list. It sounds terrific.
It is terrific.
Yeah, I'm gonna see. I used to be able to just add it to my queue from Netflix, but now Netflix doesn't do DVD by mail service anymore. I have to just hope that it comes on TV sometime. All right.
There's another movie that might fit your question because it's based on an actual case. It's a movie called North Country. It's a feminist movie with Sissy Spacek, Charlize Theron, and Frances McDermott. Three absolutely dynamite female actors, and the case the movie is based on brought into legal reality for the first time the idea of workplace harassment, sexual harassment in the workplace. So the movie follows the case somewhat closely, although it of course takes dramatic liberties with the case, and introduces you to all of the issues involved in workplace harassment, especially when the subject or object of harassment is a woman.
If folks are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Dr. Stanley Fish. You describe legal doctrine as a gravitational center that shapes characters and plot. Are there films where that gravitational pull is so strong that it almost feels like the law itself is a character in the story?
Yes. Many of the films that I write on are like that. But in a film like The People versus Larry Flint, which is a film about pornography and the First Amendment, it's that issue that drives everything, and the trial at the end of the movie takes over the movie. So even though it has extraordinarily able actors like Woody Harrelson, the legal ambience is triumphant at every point.
Yeah, what a great point that is, and you're so right. I remember seeing it in theaters, and it was exactly as you described. How do you think popular legal films, including the ones that you write about, influence public perception of the justice system? Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse.
Well, I think they do, but I think that even larger influence could be found in television series, especially the Law and Order family of series, which I think at one time had 4 or 5 spin-offs, because typically those stories are very precisely targeted on legal doctrine, and there are some fairly technical but nevertheless captivating discussions of legal doctrine in many episodes of Law and Order, and that, of course, had a huge audience for more than 20 years, and still has a large audience in reruns. So that influence, I think, is enormous.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
I'm Cindy Lauper with fellow Cosentix advocate, Chef Michelle Bernstein.
We'll share our experiences with plaque psoriasis, with psoriatic arthritis, and Dr. Panico will talk about the possible connection.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur.
Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com/Cindy.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and get up to 50% off with minimum purchase. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV Insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
While there are some recent high-profile trials dominating the news cycle, I'm wondering if you see filmmakers shifting their storytelling strategies to reflect these sort of cultural moments.
Well, I think that the material of legal movies often comes from the headlines and from contemporary interests. We have not yet seen legal movies that center on events on campus, such as the events that we've seen at Columbia University and other colleges. But I would bet there will soon be one in which those issues are highlighted, and the questions of the speech rights of students, faculty, staff, and the issues of security on campus are made into films.
Courtroom dramas oftentimes portray lawyers as heroic truth seekers and sometimes as manipulative schemers. Sometimes in the same film, we see both.
Right.
Do you think that kind of binary depiction skews the public's understanding of real-life legal professionals?
I think it does. I think the lawyer as hero is a genre that keeps on being reinvented. So, for example, a fairly recent example in evolution would be the Matthew McConaughey figure in The Lincoln Lawyer, who is simultaneously a bit sleazy and yet is finally heroic. And I believe that kind of figure is attractive to audiences. I prefer films which just show lawyers at their everyday work and don't attach lawyerly work to large issues, but just focus on lawyerly craft. But there aren't that many of those. As I said, Anatomy of a Murder is the best example.
Obviously, guys like John Grisham get a lot of attention.
Oh, yes, right.
I'm wondering if there are other specific directors or screenwriters who excel at weaving legal concepts into compelling stories without overwhelming the audience with legal jargon.
Sidney Lumet was one. Yeah, and he originally did 12 Angry Men, later The Verdict, and others. He was terrific at doing that. There's an inherently dramatic attraction to the courtroom. It's an enclosed scene. All of the characters can be put in one room, but yet they occupy different roles. So there's dramatic tension between the people in the room. And then there are structural features like witness examinations of witnesses and opening and closing statement, all of which are dramatic even before they are put into any cinematic action. And that may be why the genre is so attractive to filmmakers.
You know, it's funny. A friend of mine is the deputy commissioner of jurors in a certain jurisdiction. And, you know, a lot of times when jurors are waiting around for jury duty, they'll show them a movie just to pass the time, because otherwise a lot of the time they're just sitting there. And my friend said, a friend of mine said to me years ago that he would like to show them My Cousin Vinny, but he hasn't done so because the lawyering in that movie is so much better than the lawyering that they're likely to see in any of the cases that they're going to hear. So he didn't want to make the lawyers that they're going to be hearing from look bad by comparison. And then sure enough, I did some research, and the fella that directed or wrote My Cousin Vinny went to law school and was admitted to the bar. Where does My Cousin Vinny fall in the pantheon of legal films?
Well, it's of course part of legal comedy, and that's not a genre that I write about. I think that My Cousin Vinny is very enjoyable, but in terms of Legal Doctrine, which is my focus, there are 2.5 minutes of very good cross-examination by the Joe Pesci character. But the rest of the movie is fairly broad comedy based on the very broad characters in the film.
Are there specific some of the most powerful legal narratives are personal stories? Are there films that, in your opinion, best capture the emotional toll that legal battles can take on the people involved in them?
The Verdict would be one of those. Another Paul Newman movie where you simultaneously are given a very strong picture of the suffering that has been experienced by a young woman and her family as a result of a medical mischance. You're also introduced to in the central figure played by Paul Newman, a lawyer who is conflicted, imperfect, on the edge of perhaps being drummed out of the profession because of some of his activities, who then redeems himself in the end. And then you have opposing him the great actor James Mason as a lawyer representing the evil forces. And he's so good that you begin to root at one point for the evil forces. So that you have this great. So that's a great comment. Another movie that has the same structure is I think it's called A Civil Affair or A Civil Action.
John Travolta, Robert Duvall.
Yes, right. And there, I mean, Duvall is so fantastic, and the opposition between them also provides the same kind of running a dramatic action that makes that movie so alive.
Are there? Well, I know we talked about comedy a minute ago, but are there other unconventional films, maybe comedies, maybe thrillers, maybe even science fiction, that you believe use legal concepts in fascinating ways?
Well, there's the film starring Al Pacino. What's the name of that film? I'm trying to think of it.
That's where he says the whole courtroom is out of order, right?
Yeah, that's right, and that's
and Justice for All, and Justice for All,
and Justice for All, and that's a film in which it's kind of everything is dramatically heightened. So you have crazy judges, crazy clients, crazy lawyers, and the usual over-the-top performance by Pacino. So that's one that I think is a big audience favorite.
A lot of legal scholars frequently talk about the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Are there films that you think capture and explore that sort of tension particularly well?
Yeah, again, the verdict, because the last...
the verdict from the jury basically ignores the judge's the direction, right?
And that's because Paul Newman gives a great closing summation, which is all about the spirit rather than the letter. So that would be one of those. And of course, there's To Kill a Mockingbird, in which Gregory Peck loses the case, but nevertheless, his own demonstration of the true spirit of law is what is most compelling about that film.
There's people are watching films very differently these days than they did even 5 or 10 years ago. With streaming platforms producing more long-form content, do you think that we're entering a golden age for law-driven storytelling where legal complexities can unfold more gradually, or is it tougher to make a good legal movie these days?
I think in these what they call limited series that have become more and more popular, you can in fact draw out a legal drama in ways that will keep the audience's attention even between episodes. In most cases, technical advances open up new possibilities for artistic creation, and I think that's happening right now.
With AI and emerging technologies starting to influence the legal practice, and we've seen ChatGPT cause a number of lawyers to cite fictitious cases. How do you see filmmakers incorporating these modern realities into future legal dramas?
Well, we haven't yet seen a legal drama which is based on a ChatGPT kind of production, but I assume that in time we will, and it will have to. Perhaps it'll be issues of copyright, or again going to the university, issues where students are disciplined and perhaps dismissed for having produced papers that weren't in fact their own, but were written by an AI program. That hasn't happened yet, to my knowledge, but I would be very surprised if it doesn't happen soon.
Lastly, if you could recommend just one film that every aspiring lawyer or movie buff should watch in order to understand the power of law in storytelling, what would it be?
Judgment at Nuremberg.
Judgment at Nuremberg. It's a great William Shatner film.
Well, actually, yes. In fact, he's you get high marks for that remark, because most people remember, Spencer Tracy and Burt Lancaster, Marlene Dietrich, Judy Garland, Maximilian Schell, Richard Widmark, but there is William Shatner in an early role and playing it extremely well. But that's a movie in which the great issue, which has always commanded legal doctrine, is discussed and examined in ways that are extraordinary. I'm talking about whether or not the basis of law should be something universal, an absolute truth that holds in any time and in any place, or whether law is a matter of local customs and what a particular precinct or city or state regards as law. Wow. So are we going to simply call what is on the books the law, or are we going to insist that what is on the books correspond in some way to a large abstract truth?
Really?
That's a question that has been debated over and over again in the history of the law, and Judgment at Nuremberg dramatizes it perfectly, I think.
All right, Dr. Stanley Fish, his book is Law at the Movies, Turning Legal Doctrine into Art. If you want to check out the book, it's available on Amazon and most other places that books are sold. Dr. Fish, I enjoyed the conversation very much. I hope we can talk again.
I did too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If you want to comment on any portion of our conversation, feel free to do so. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.